I had my own son arrested. The words still taste like poison in my mouth. Every time I replay that moment, the flashing red and blue lights outside the diner. The confusion in his eyes, the sound of the cuffs clicking, shut it feels like I'm reliving the slowest heartbreak of my life. You think raising a child means protecting them from the world, not calling the police on them. But when your own blood drains your life savings, when the boy you raise becomes the man who lies to your face for money, what choice do you have left? It started 18 months earlier, long before the sting, long before I even realized I was being played. Back then, I still believed Daniel was just going through a rough patch. He was 27, brilliant when he wanted to be, but drifting one failed startup after another. Always talking big about opportunities that never seemed to materialize. I'd tell my wife, he just needs a break, even as the phone rang again, and again with his familiar voice, Dad, can we talk for a second? I remember the first time he asked for money that year. It was a Tuesday morning, grey and unremarkable. Premier wa. Sitting in my office, balancing accounts for my contracting business, when his name popped up on my phone. Hey, Dad, he said, his tone to casual. Listen, I've got a deal on the table. It's solid this time. Just need a quick infusion to lock in inventory. I should have known. Right there, the word asterisk, infusion, asterisk. Daniel had started using investor jargon like armor, layering it over his desperation. He said he needed $20,000. Just to finalize a bulk crypto mining rig purchase. I told him I didn't know much about crypto. He chuckled, the way he always did when he wanted to sound confident. You don't need to. Trust me on this one. Dad, it's guaranteed returns. I wired the money that afternoon. My wife, Margaret, found the receipt later that night. You saw him 20,000. She asked quietly, her voice shaking with disbelief. David, he's been promising returns for years. He's my son, I said. It was the only defense I had. By the end of that summer, Daniel had asked for money 3 more times, each amount larger than the last, each story more elaborate. The mining rigs had supposedly been delayed at customs. Tenter was a partnership dispute, and finally, a government tax audit that froze his assets. Each time, I sent more. Each time, I believed a little less, but I couldn't stop. Then came the day I found the letter from the bank. It was a Thursday morning. The sun hit the kitchen window just right. The world looked deceptively peaceful. The letter said a wire transfer had been initiated from retirement and $40,000 to an offshore company I'd never heard of. I called the bank immediately. The voice on the other end was polite but concerned. Sir, the authorization came from your email address. It included your digital signature, my email. I repeated. That's impossible, but it wasn't. Daniel had access. He'd helped me set up my online banking 2 years earlier. I didn't confront him right away. Premier coup de note. For days I walked around in a fog, trying to convince myself there was a logical explanation. Maybe he borrowed it temporarily. Maybe it was all part of the business, but when I finally logged into my account, my hands went cold. Every cent of my savings, over $100,000, was gone. I called him that night. My voice was shaking so badly I had to grip the phone with both hands. Daniel, I said, I need to talk to you. Now, he sounded annoyed. Can it wait, Dad? I'm in the middle of something. No, it can't. There was a pause. Okay, what's up? I know about the transfers. Another pause, this one longer, heavier. I could almost hear his heartbeat through the silence. What transfers? He asked finally, to calm. Don't lie to me. I snapped. My retirement account. The wires. The offshore company. I checked everything. When he spoke again, his voice cracked just enough to betray him. Dad, listen, I was going to tell you, it's temporary. I just needed capital to keep things moving. I'll pay it all back. Pay it back. I laughed, though it sounded more like choking. With what? Daniel. Another fake company. Another non-existent deal. He didn't answer. Tatua? The last real conversation we had before everything spiraled. Over the next week, he stopped answering calls. His social media vanished. Friends said he'd moved out of his apartment. It was like a deed-off map. And every day, I stared at the hole in my bank account, realizing I might never see that money Or my son again. Margaret cried every night. You have to report. It, she said one evening, her voice hoarse. It's fraud. He's our son, I whispered. We can't send him to prison, but I did report it quietly, at first. The detective, a stocky man, named Harris, listened without judgment. This kind of thing happens more than you'd think, he said, especially with family. We'll open an investigation, but if you want to get your money back, we'll need your cooperation. Weeks passed, then months. The investigation went nowhere. Every trace led to shell companies and crypto wallets buried under aliases. Until one morning, Harris called me. We found him, he said. He's back in the state. Renting under a fake name. Something in me broke then. Not anger, not relief, just a cold resolve. What do next? I asked à riposer. We set up a sting. The plan was simple on paper, cruel in execution. I'd reach out, pretend to forgive him, pretend to invest again. We'd bait him with a fake offeran, investor deal wired through a monitored account. If he took the bait, the evidence would be irrefutable. I spent nights rehearsing what I'd say. How do you call your own? Son, to trick him into confessing. I sat at my desk, staring at his photo on the shelf, the boy, in a little league uniform. Grinning through missing teeth, and I felt something hollow open inside me. When I finally called, he picked up instantly. Dad. His voice trembled. Cautious, but hopeful. Yeah, I said. I've been thinking, maybe I was too harsh. You were right about investing. Premier Wanto. Help. Silence, then disbelief. You're serious? Dead serious. I can wire some funds tomorrow. He hesitated just long enough for me to know. He didn't believe it, but greed is louder than doubt. All right, he said. Let's meet first. Talk in person. That's how I ended up sitting in the corner booth of Mel's diner 3 nights later. Hands trembling around a cup of black coffee. Outside, though. Unmarked cars waited, engines idling. Harris sat at the counter, pretending to eat pie. When Daniel walked in, he looked older, beard unkempt. Eyes tired, but his smile was still that same boyish curve that once melted every bit of anger I could ever feel. He slid into the booth across from me. Dad, he said softly. I missed you. I nodded, forcing a smile I didn't feel. You too, son. Le Torstalk. Business. He leaned in, eyes flickering with greed again. This deal's a sure thing. You'll make back everything and more. And as I watched him outline his latest lie, the final piece of the sting falling into place, I realized something brutal. The boy I raised was gone. All that remained was a man who saw his own father as a mark. Outside, the police were moving in. The lights came first. A sudden burst of red and blue that spilled across the diner's windows like a bleeding wound. Then came the sirens, short and sharp, cutting through the hum of late-night chatter and the clinking of silverware. Daniel froze mid-sentence, his smile collapsing into confusion. Dad, what the hell is this? I couldn't speak. Mitro. Hard closed up, Tommy. Detective Harris stood up from the counter, his badge flashing under the fluorescent light. The officers outside moved fast, 2 of them pushing through the door, hands already hovering near their holsters. Daniel's chair screeched against the linoleum as he rose, panic flickering across his face. Dad, what's going on? I tried to say something. Anything, but the words tangled inside me. The moment stretched, distorted. I could hear Margaret's voice in my head. Asterisk, you have to report it. Asterisk, I could hear my own response. Asterisk, he's our son. Asterisk, Daniel Russell. Harris said, his voice steady but firm, you're under arrest for financial fraud. Wire theft, an identity, misrepresentation. Please place your hands where I can see them. Daniel! Tu n'es tout me y fasse pas. He whispered. I felt it like a blade twisting in my gut. Danny, I said, my voice breaking. Please just listen. Are you kidding me? His voice cracked. You asterisk called the cops on your own, son. Asterisk, the officers moved in, 1 on each side. He struggled, shouting, cursing, but it didn't matter. The cuffs clicked shut. The sound was louder than anything I'd ever heard in my life. Louder than the sirens, louder than my own heartbeat. People were staring now, waitresses frozen, mid-step, an old couple by the window whispering. Harris gave me a nod, the kind of look that said asterisk, you did the right thing. Asterisk, but I couldn't even meet his eyes. I was staring at my son, my boy, as they led him out of the diner, his head down, his voice hoarse. With disbelief, "Dad!" he yelled, right before they pushed him into the car. "You'll regret this!" "I swear to God, you'll regret this." Then the door slammed shut, and he was gone. The silence that followed felt like the air had been vacuumed out of the room. Harris came over, resting a heavy hand on my shoulder. "It's over," he said quietly, but it wasn't over, not even close. I sat there long after. The cars pulled away, the coffee cold in front of me, my reflection staring back from the window, a tired old man who didn't recognize himself anymore. I kept replaying the last few seconds, his voice echoing in my head. Asterisk, "You'll regret this." Asterisk, maybe he was right. When I finally got home, the house was dark except for the kitchen light. Margaret was waiting, sitting at the table, her hands clasped tightly around a cup of untouched tea. She looked up as I walked in, her eyes swollen from crying. "Is it done?" she asked. I nodded. She pressed a hand to her mouth and began to sob quietly. I stood there, unsure whether to comfort her or collapse myself. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a father. I felt like an executioner. "He'll hate us," she whispered. "He'll never forgive us, I know, but maybe one day he'll understand." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. You dig do deep down like that anymore. The boy who used to bring me handmade Father's Day cards, who once cried when he broke a neighbor's window, was gone. Replaced by someone who could look his own father in the eye while draining his life savings. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my study, the walls closing in on me, the house too quiet. I opened the old photo album's pictures of birthdays, camping trips, his graduation. Daniel, with his arm around me, both of us smiling like the world couldn't touch us. I whispered to the photo, "Where did you go, son?" The next morning, Harris called again. "He's been processed," he said. "He's refusing to talk, but the DA's office is confident we can press charges." "Given the evidence." "He's looking at real time." "Real time," I repeated numbly. 5 to 10, maybe more, depending on restitution and plea bargaining. The words blurred. 5 to 10 years. I couldn't wrap my head around it. My son, my only child, in prison. After the call, I drove aimlessly for hours. Past the diner, past the small park where Daniel used to play baseball, past the high school where I'd once cheered for him from the bleachers. Everything I saw felt haunted by him. At one point, I pulled over by the pier, the cold wind slapping my face. I took out my phone, scrolling through old messages, his voice notes, his "Hey Dad" texts, his promises. "You'll get it all back soon," one said. I swear, this time it's different. That was the last text before everything fell apart. Eek. Thought they were debt collectors or wrong numbers. Then one night, just after midnight, I answered out of frustration. The line was silent for a long moment. Then a voice whispered, "You really think he's going to stay locked up forever?" I froze. The voice was young, male but not Daniel's. "Who is this?" I asked. Click, the line went dead. I called Harris the next morning. He told me to stay calm. "We've seen this before," he said. "Could be associates, people he worked with. These crypto fraud circles they're tight. Some of them don't like when one of their own gets caught. I wanted to believe it was just intimidation, empty noise. A but deep down, anyone done with me, not psychologically. The kinds of duit. Handcuffs. 2 days later, I received an email. No son de nam, an attachment. I hovered over it for a long time before finally opening it. It was a single image, a photograph of me sitting at my desk, taken from outside my window. My heart stopped. I went straight to Harris's office, slamming my phone onto his desk. "They're watching me," I said. He examined the photo, jaw tightening. "Where was this taken?" "Last night." "From my backyard." "Probably. I was working late." He rubbed his temple. "All right. We'll get a patrol unit to do some rounds near Pamintrop. In the meantime, Brian Closed. Don't engage if anyone contacts you." But that night, I couldn't stay still. I walked from window to window, every creak in the house making me flinch. Margaret had gone to her sister's for the week. She said she couldn't bear to be in the same house where Daniel grew up. So it was just me in the silence, heavy and suffocating. Around 2 a.m., I saw headlights in the driveway. A dark sedan idled there, engine humming softly. I reached for the phone, but before I could dial, the car backed up and disappeared into... Tonight, one more turn its car imagined. Lack of sleep, nerves, guilt, it all blurs together after a while. But when I stepped outside to grab the newspaper, I saw it, a small, white envelope tucked under my windshield wiper. Inside, a single note, blood doesn't betray blood, no signature, no return address. Just those words, scrawled in Daniel's handwriting. My stomach dropped. He couldn't have written it, he was still in custody, wasn't he? I drove straight to the county jail. The clerk at the desk recognized me immediately. Mr. Russell, right? She said, your son's already been transferred. Transferred? To where? She checked the computer. State holding facility. They moved him yesterday morning. Why? Wasn't I notified? Probably a timing issue, she said with a shrug. They'll send official paperwork soon, but something in her tone to casual, to dismissive set me on edge. I asked to speak to a warden or supervisor, but no one could confirm details due to privacy restrictions. I left with a sick feeling twisting in my gut. That evening, Harris called. We had to move him, he explained. There were threats circulating inside the jail. Someone leaked his charges, and a few inmates took issue with his scams. It was for his safety, I repeated. What about mine? He hesitated. We're monitoring things. The messages, the photo, none of it's escalated yet. Yet? Look, Mr. Russell, he said, lowering his voice, your son burned a lot of people. Investors, partners, accomplices. Some of them lost serious money. When people lose that kind of cash, they don't forgive easily. If anyone's coming after you, it's because they think you've got what's left. I don't, I said bitterly. He took everything. Yeah, Harris muttered. But they don't know that. I started sleeping with a baseball bat beside the bed. Not that it made me feel any safer. The nights were long, filled with shadows and imagined footsteps. I thought about Daniel constantly, what he was thinking. Whether he hated me, whether part of him still believed I'd forgive him. Then, one morning, I got another email. This one was different. No threats. Just a video, file labeled asterisk asterisk watch. Asterisk asterisk, I hesitated for a full minute before. Pressing play. The footage was grainy, filmed on a cheap phone camera. It showed Daniel alive, unchained, sitting in the passenger seat of a moving car. He was wearing a grey hoodie, his hair longer than I remembered, but there was no mistaking him. He looked straight into the camera. Hi, Dad. I froze. I know you think you did the right thing, he said. His voice was calm. Almost gently starts me. But you don't understand what you started. You didn't just turn me in, you turned all of them against me. He glanced off camera, as if someone else were driving. You should have left it alone. You should have let me handle it. Then he leaned closer to the lens, his eyes cold and hollow. I'll see you soon. The video ended. There. I watched it 3 times, my hands shaking harder with each replay. How had he escaped? Who was helping him? I sent the video to Harris immediately. He called back 20 minutes later. That's recent, he said grimly. The timestamps from last night. We're issuing a warrant. Stay put. Lock your doors. Stay put, I said, voice rising. He knows where I live. Detective. Air's coming. Here. Asterisk, then we'll be ready. They stationed a cruiser outside my house that night, to officers keeping watch. I sat in the living room, with the lights off, staring through the blinds. Midnight came and went. Nothing. But around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed again. A text. No number, just a string of letters and symbols. Inside, a single message. Asterisk, asterisk, look outside. Asterisk, asterisk, I did. Of the driveway, illuminated by the cruiser's headlights, was a small cardboard box. No one in sight. I went out slowly, every instinct screaming at me to stop. The officers followed, weapons drawn. I crouched and opened it. Inside was an old family photo, the 3 of us at the lake, smiling, arms around each other. And underneath it, a note scrawled in the same handwriting. As before, asterisk, asterisk, you can't catch what you created. Asterisk, asterisk, I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. By morning, Daniel was officially listed as a fugitive. The police had checkpoints out, warrants issued, state lines alerted. But somehow, I knew he wouldn't run far. He didn't want freedom, he wanted me. By the 4th day after Daniel's escape, my life had turned into something out of a bad thriller. Police cruisers circled the block, just enough to see the glow of the streetlights outside. I must have drifted off, because the next thing I remember is waking to a faint noise, a soft tapping. I sat up, heart hammering, straining to listen. Tap, 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 slow, rhythmic, coming from the kitchen. I grabbed the bat beside my bed and crept down the hallway. The sound grew louder. Tap, tap, like knuckles on glass. When I reached the kitchen, the lights from the backyard cast a pale glow through the window, and then I saw it. A single hand pressed against the glass from the outside. Pale, still, I froze, my breath caught in my throat. Daniel, I whispered before I could stop myself. The hand slid slowly downward, leaving a streak of condensation behind, then disappeared. Idor, flöng pen. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of rain and wet soil. The yard was empty. No footprints, no sound, just the soft rustle of leaves in the wind. But then I saw it, lying on the doorstep, weighted down by a small rock, a folded piece of paper. I bent down, my hands shaking as I picked it up. The handwriting was unmistakable. You remember the boat, don't you? The boat I hadn't thought about. Itinéraire, Daniel, and I used to take it out on Lake Belmont every summer. It was an old aluminum fishing boat, dented and leaking around the seams, but it was ours. After Mrdsvatedi, I'd prom it one day. But life happened. Work, bills, Daniel's messes, and eventually it just sat there, abandoned behind the shed, covered by a torn blue tarp. I dropped the note. My pulse spiked. By the time Harris arrived, I was already outside, flashlight in hand, the beam slicing through the darkness as I made my way toward the shed. Mr. Russell! Harris called from behind me. Stop! Let us clear it! But I didn't stop. I couldn't. Something inside me needed to see it for myself. The shed door creaked open. The smell hit me first. Mildew, rust, the faint trace of gasoline. I lifted the tarp. The boat was there, just as I'd left it. But inside, sitting neatly in the center seat, was another envelope. Harris caught up, his gun drawn. Step back. I did. He picked up the envelope with gloved hands, tore it open. Inside was a single Polaroid, photograph Amy, asleep in my bed, taken from inside the house. My knees gave out. I stumbled backward, barely catching myself on the edge of the workbench. He's been here, I whispered. Harris swore under his breath, barking orders into his radio. Within minutes, the property was crawling with officers, flashlights sweeping across the trees, dogs sniffing through the brush. But they found no footprints of forced entry. No Daniel. After the chaos died down, Harris sat me down on the back porch. You're not staying. Shonite, Esifir. We're moving you to a safe location until we figure out how he's getting in and out. I wanted to argue, but I was too drained. They packed me a small bag, drove me to a motel 2 towns over. Anonymous, sterile, the kind of place where nobody asked questions. But even there, I couldn't escape him. At 3:17 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Text message. You're getting closer. Dad, check your voicemail. My hands trembled as I dialed in. There was one new message. It was him. Remember the lake house. Into the water, like an old man's spine, but it wasn't the same. The shutters were missing. The path was overgrown, and the silence that was new. I parked 100 feet away, keeping the car running. My phone buzzed a text from Harris. I stared at the message. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, but I didn't respond. I shut off the engine. Instead, the gravel crunched under my boots as I approached the front door. It was slightly ajar, the lock broken. Inside, the air smelled like damp wood, and dust. The living room was just as we'd left it years ago, the faded plaid couch, the fishing rods in the corner, the family photos still hanging crooked on the walls, except for one detail. On the Holviki ticker at a small, Stwitafon manide totwinder. Lost weeks ago, with a single message glowing on the screen. Welcome back. I picked it up slowly. My reflection stared back from the dark glass, ghost-like, and hollow. The phone buzzed again. Another message appeared downstairs. The basement, every part of me screamed not to go, but I did, step by step, the creaking, stairs groaning under my weight. The air grew colder the deeper I went, the smell of earth and mildew thickening. When I reached the bottom, the dim light from above barely reached the floor, and then I heard it, a soft, measured breathing. Daniel, I said. Quietly, something shifted in the dark. He stepped forward slowly, the outline of his face emerging from the shadows. He looked thinner, sharper somehow, like a version of my son that had been hollowed out and refilled with something meaner. His hair hung loose around his face, and in his hands he held the locket Margaret had given him on his 16th birthday. "Hey, Dad," he said, smiling. "Faintly, took you long enough." I swallowed hard. "How did you get out?" He shrugged. "You really think bars could hold me?" "You forget. Who taught me to be resourceful?" I stared at him. "I taught you honesty, hard work. You learned the rest on your own." He laughed softly. "You really believe that, don't you, that I turned out like this all by myself? You stole from me, Daniel, from your family." He took a step closer. "I learned from you. You think I didn't see what you did to people, all those contracts, all those little loopholes in your business deals. You called it strategy. You taught me that everyone's just trying to get ahead, and the ones who win are the ones willing to bend the truth. That's not the same thing, isn't it?" he said, voice rising. "You lied to yourself for years about who you were, and I just stopped lying sooner." I felt my stomach drop. "You think this is revenge?" "I think it's balance." He circled the room, slowly pacing like a predator. "Do you know what it was like in there, Dad? In that cell, every man in that place knew my name because you gave it to them. You think they respected me? No, they laughed. The guy who got caught by his own father, the pathetic little con artist who couldn't even con blood. Daniel, listen to me. Nitrogen monoxide." He slammed against the wall. "Coinjet total. You don't get to fix this. You took everything from me, my freedom, my future, my name. So now I'm taking something from you." My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" He reached into his pocket and tossed something at my feet. I bent down, my blood turning to ice as I saw what it was. Margaret's wedding ring. "Where did you get this?" I whispered. "She came to see me," he said quietly. "Before the transfer, she wanted to understand. She wanted to believe there was still good in me." He smiled, cruel and broken. "She does now." The words hit me like a sledgehammer. "What did you do?" He tilted his head. "Nothing." Yet I lunged forward, grabbing him by the collar, slamming him against the wall. "Where is she?" He didn't fight back. He just smiled. "You finally sound like me." My vision tunneled. I felt the rage pulsing in my veins, the years of guilt and fear boiling over all at once. For a second, I didn't recognize myself. I saw my reflection in his eyes, not a father, not a victim, but a man teetering on the same edge. His son had already fallen. From then I heard the faintest sound behind me, a floorboard creaking. I turned. At the top of the stairs stood Margaret, pale, trembling. "Alive, David," she whispered. "Put him down." I froze, my grip loosened. Daniel slipped free, stepping back into the shadows, eyes darting. "Between us, you shouldn't have come," he hissed. "I had to," she said softly. "You're my son." For a moment, something flickered in his face, something almost human. Then it was gone. He backed toward the far corner, hand dipping into his jacket. Harris's voice suddenly cut through the silence, echoing from upstairs. "Daniel, Russell, drop it." Everything exploded at once. Daniel pulled something from his coat, not a gun, but a detonator, a small black device with a blinking red light. "Stop," I shouted. He looked straight at me. "You should have left me alone, Dad." Then he pressed the button. The blast threw us backward. The world became a roar of fire and splintering wood. The ceiling cracked, dust and debris raining down. Harris tackled me to the floor, shouting orders into his radio, but I couldn't hear him over the ringing in my ears. When the smoke cleared, Daniel was gone. No body, no trail. Just the echo of his laughter fading into the sound of the burning house. And in that moment, standing in the wreckage of everything I'd ever loved, I realized the truth. He hadn't come to kill me. He'd come to make me live with the fact that I'd created him. The fire burned for hours. By dawn, the lake house was nothing more than a blackened skeleton, smoke rising over the water, like the ghost of everything I'd once believed in. Firefighters worked in silence, their boots crunching through ash and charred wood. I sat on the dock wrapped in a blanket, watching the embers hiss and die, the taste of smoke still coating my tongue. Harris was talking to the local sheriff, his voice low but urgent. Margaret sat beside me, trembling. Her face was streaked with soot, but her eyes, they were hollow, far away. I kept replaying the explosion, the light, the sound, the heat, and Daniel's face just before it all went white. When Harris finally came over, he crouched beside us. "We searched the perimeter," he said quietly. "No sign of him, no body, no footprints. He's gone." I turned to him. "You don't mean gone as in?" He shook his head. "We would have found something. Bone, blood, anything. He's alive." The words hit me harder than the blast itself. Margaret covered her mouth, fighting back a sob. He's not going to stop, is he? Harris didn't answer right away. He just looked out over the water, the reflection of the fire, flickering in his eyes. No, he said finally. Not until he gets what he wants. And what's that? Harry? Looked at me then, not as a detective, but as someone who understood regret. They moved us again that day, to a safe house 3 counties away. An old cabin the department used for witness protection, isolated, quiet, surrounded by miles of forest. There were cameras on every corner, motion, sensors on the windows, and a generator in case the power went out. But none of it made me feel safe. Margaret barely spoke the first few days. She sat by the window, most of the time, staring into the trees like she expected Daniel to appear at any moment. Sometimes she'd whisper to herself, over and over, asterisk, he's still my son. He's still my son. Asterisk, I tried to focus on the practical things, setting up the security feed, checking the locks, making sure Harris's team rotated their shifts properly. But at night, when the Sarine trade me, I'd see flashes of him, Daniel, 10 years old, laughing as we raced the boat across the lake. Daniel, 18, shaking my hand at his high school graduation. Daniel, 27, smiling as he told his first lie that I was too blind to see. Every version of him haunted me. Then, on the 5th night, the power went out. It started with a flicker, the lights dimming, then returning, then dimming again. The hum of the refrigerator cut off, and the cabin fell into complete darkness. The only sound was the wind outside and the faint tick of the wall clock. Generator should have kicked in by now, I muttered, grabbing the flashlight. I opened the door to the back room where the generator was kept and stopped cold. Zapawe. Switch had been ripped out, wires dangled loose. On the wall, scrawled in black marker, were 4 words, asterisk, asterisk, you can't hide forever, asterisk, asterisk, Margaret. I shouted, sprinting back into the main room. She wasn't there. I spun in circles, calling her name, my voice echoing off the wooden walls. T'es après ça, with the front door wide swinging the wind. I ran outside, the flashlight beam slicing. Through the darkness, Margaret, the forest was silent. Too silent. Then, from somewhere deep in the trees, a voice. Dad. I froze. It was him. Don't do this. I shouted. It's over. Daniel, you don't have to. Over. His voice drifted closer, mocking. You think this ends because you say it does. I turned in circles, trying to pinpoint the direction. The light caught movement, a figure darting between. The trees. Daniel, listen to me. You're sick. We can help you. He laughed, that same low, broken laugh that still echoed in my dreams. You still don't get it, do you? I don't need help. I need you to understand. Understand what? You made meekered, thou and tout. The darkness swallowed everything. For a moment, I stood there, heart pounding, the sound of my own. Breathing deafening. Ten première felt it upon me? I turned, swinging the flashlight like a weapon. It struck something's arm, twisting out. Stop, I shouted, struggling. Daniel, stop. The struggle shifted, a blur of movement, pain, weight. We tumbled onto the ground, the flashlight rolling away, its dying beam flashing across his face. Elukadwil gotchan burning, with something I couldn't name. You can't fix me, he hissed, pinning me down. You can't make this right. Daniel, I gasped, trying to push him off. You don't have to do this, don't I? He leaned closer, his breath hot against my face. You ruined me, Dad. Now I'm just returning the favor. A sound cut through the chaos, a click, sharp and metallic. Daniel. A voice shouted. It. Wari. A beam of light from his rifle's scope swept across the clearing, landing squarely on my son's chest. Get off him. Hands where I can see them. Daniel froze. His eyes met mine, and for a fleeting second, I saw the boy I used to know, hidden somewhere behind the madness. Tennis my legs, Lurable. You should have stayed away. He shoved himself backward, disappearing into the darkness just as Harris fired. The shot cracked through the trees, but when the light swept across the forest, Daniel was gone. Again, Harris helped me up, his face pale. You okay? I nodded weakly, though every part of me felt shattered. He was here. He took Margaret. Harris's expression hardened. We'll find her ce soir still. Echoing in the dark, like a promise. Asterisk, you made me asterisk, and for the first time, I believed him. Because as I stood there, staring into the endless black forest, I felt something change inside me, something cold and vengeful. If Daniel wanted to play this game, then fine. He'd taught me how to survive his lies. Now, it was time I taught him what it meant to lose everything. He did not let me go back to the cabin that night. He said the forensics team would sweep it, that the FBI had been notified, that there was a multi-agency task force forming. I barely heard him. I